Good morning and welcome to this online service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of the South Hills, also known as Sunnyhill. Our mission is to create a more just and compassionate community within and beyond our walls. My name is Bradley Convis, and I'm proud to serve as a worship associate for this congregation. If you're a newcomer or visitor to our congregation, please let us know you're here by posting a comment on the live Facebook feed or YouTube feed, or by getting in touch with our membership director, Bethany Thornton. You can reach her at sunnyhillmembership@gmail.com. We would love to let you know how you can connect with our congregation even during this time when our building is closed. Our opening words were written by Joan Javier Duval. You are loved, and you are welcome here. Whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week, or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth, you are loved, and you are welcome here. Whether you are feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful, you are loved and you are welcome here. Whether you have untold stories buried deep inside, or stories that have been forced beyond the edges of comfort, you are loved and you are welcome here. Whether you have made promises, broken promises, or are renewing your promises, you are loved, and you are welcome here. Whatever is on your heart, however it is with your soul at this moment, you are loved, and you are welcome here. In this space of welcome and acceptance, commitment and recommitment, of covenant and connection, let us worship together.
Good morning, and please join us in saying the words for lighting our chalice.
Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets for the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light for us a path of joy and peace.
Bring it together, Mama.
Hi, my name is Corey Vipperman, and I'm a co-chair of the Social Justice Committee at Sunnyhill. Over the next few weeks, we'll be contacting Sunnyhill members and friends in our Get Out the Vote initiative. Our efforts will serve two purposes, most importantly to connect with you, to see how you and your family are doing, and if there's anything that the church can do to help you in this time of physical separation. We'll also be answering any questions you may have regarding the upcoming November election. You should be getting either an email or a phone call from one of our volunteers in the coming weeks if you haven't already. We have lots of information and support to share, including instructions on mail-in ballots, satellite drop-off locations, absentee ballots, and how to stay safe if you decide to vote in person. Don't hesitate to ask questions. We'll get you those answers. Most importantly, encourage anyone who's eligible to vote in your household to do so in November. Times are difficult both socially and politically, and this is a great opportunity to come together and support each other as a congregation, to feel connected in a common cause, and to live our Unitarian Universalist principles. So expect those emails and phone calls, and please stay safe.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery. Life is a random mystery. 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 Life is a random mystery.
Here's a story about Coyote. One day, it occurred to him that he didn't need any of the other creatures in the forest. There he was, sitting pretty all by himself. What did he need anyone else for? He had his songs, his flute and his drum. He had his dancing and his fire. Besides, all the other creatures, they were kind of strange. There was Rabbit. He had these huge ears and enormous legs, and all he ever did was run around. And then there was Moose. He had this absurd head of antlers. He was always wandering up to his knees in marshes. Why'd he do that? And there were all these pesky birds flitting around, twittering. They would never let Coyote take a nap. Ridiculous. Who needs them? Not Coyote. So he decided to just leave them all behind. He picked himself up and wandered off, trying to find a place where he could be alone. All alone. Entirely alone. With none of those absurd creatures to bother him. He wanted to be able to dance his dances by himself and sing and play his flute and drum for no one but himself. A place where he wouldn't have to share his fire and he could nap in peace. As Coyote was leaving, Rabbit happened to see him and wanted to tag along. At first, he ran ahead with his big legs and long ears, and then he ran back, and then ahead, and then back again. Coyote ignored him, hoping he would just go away. "Hey, Coyote," Rabbit yelled. "Where are you going?" Coyote ignored him. Rabbit ran on ahead and came back again. "Hey, Coyote," he said. "Know what's on the other side of that hill?" "I do. I just saw it." Coyote was curious, but he ignored Rabbit and just kept on walking. Rabbit ran on ahead and came back again. "Hey, Coyote," he said. "There's something over there where you're headed, and you ought to know about it. I just saw it. Do you want me to tell you?" Well, Coyote did want to know, but he just ignored Rabbit, hoping he would just go away and leave him alone. Silly Rabbit. Rabbit's feelings were a bit hurt. "Coyote, you know what? You're ridiculous." And he went away. That night, a very strange thing happened. Coyote stopped and built his fire and sat down to sing, as he did every night. But as hard as he tried, he couldn't remember any of his songs. And so all he could do was play his flute and his drum and dance a little, but he couldn't sing. That night was strangely quiet. The next day, Coyote was off again, feeling a little sad and a little strange, but he still wanted to get away from those ridiculous creatures. They had such absurd ways of being. Before long, he came to a marsh. It was so wide, he didn't see how he could possibly go around it. He shrugged his shoulders and decided, well, I guess I gotta go right through. Pretty soon he ran into Moose, who was as usual up to his knees in mud and weeds. Moose lifted his huge head of antlers when he saw Coyote coming. "Well, hello, Coyote," he said. "What brings you all the way out here to the marshes?" Coyote ignored him and kept looking for a way to cross the mud. Moose swung his great head this way and that. He was a little miffed that Coyote was ignoring him. "Coyote, if you're looking for a dry path, I could help you," he said. Coyote looked right at him and said nothing. What a silly creature, Coyote thought to himself. If I had such ridiculous things growing out of my head, I wouldn't let anyone else see them. Moose's feelings were really hurt by now. "You know what, Coyote? You're ridiculous." And Moose walked away. Coyote finally did find his way across the marsh and went on through. That night, something strange happened. Again, Coyote built his fire, as he always does, and tried to make music. But not only had he forgotten his songs, now he couldn't remember how to play his flute or his drum. All he could do was dance. That night was frighteningly quiet. The next day, Coyote was really upset and a little afraid, but he decided that he would get away from all of these silly creatures, and get away he would. So he set off again. This time, he came to a little stream that flowed down out of the mountains. All along its banks were bushes and flowers, and it was beautiful and still and cool. Since he was thirsty and a little tired, Coyote took a long drink, sat down, and decided to take a nap. As they often are, the bushes are filled with birds. Just as Coyote was settling in to go to sleep, the little birds started singing their songs. Ugh, this is exactly what Coyote wanted to get away from. It really made him angry that the birds wouldn't let him sleep in peace. He was also a little afraid and jealous that the birds could sing, and Coyote had forgotten his songs and even how to sing. So he leapt up and snarled and barked at them. He frightened them away. It worked. They flew up and off, but one bird, he was a little bit braver than the others, said to him, being very careful to fly just out of his reach, "Coyote, you're ridiculous." And off she went. Coyote was kind of pleased with himself for getting rid of the birds, so he decided to stay right there. That night he made his fire, as he often does, but the strangest thing happened. Not only could he no longer sing, and he could no longer play his flute and drum, but now he couldn't even remember how to dance. All Coyote could do was stare into the silent fire and think about how much he had lost. Finally, he fell asleep and dreamed. In his dream, White Buffalo Woman appeared to him and asked him why he was so sad and so afraid. Coyote explained how he had lost his songs and his music and dance. He didn't know what to do, and he was really afraid that he was also going to lose his fire. White Buffalo Woman asked him why he was out here all alone. Coyote explained that he was tired of being surrounded all the time by those silly creatures who looked strange and acted strange and lived such ridiculous lives. He decided that he would live by himself to get away from them all. "Coyote," said White Buffalo Woman, "don't you understand that your music and your dance and even your fire are nothing but the spirits of those creatures who are different from you? As you drove them away, they left your heart and took their spirits with them. If you want your music and dance and your song back, you must go back to your friends and accept them back into your heart. Only then will you be able to go on." The next morning, when Coyote awoke, he couldn't remember his dream. But when the birds began to sing, as they always do in the morning, he sat still. He listened to them, and then he began to go back the way he had come. That night, when he built his fire, he could remember his dance. And the next day, he went back the way he had come, and chanced upon Moose. And he asked Moose how to get across the marsh. That night, when he built his fire, he remembered how to play his flute and drum, and the night was not so lonely. The next day, he still went back the way he had come, and suddenly up ran Rabbit. Coyote ran with Rabbit and played and had a good old time with him. That night, when he had built his fire, the air was filled with Coyote songs. Never again did Coyote forget how easily he could lose his music, and his dance, and even his fire. The end.
Each week at this time in the service, we share joys and sorrows that have been submitted by members of the congregation. We share both the things that we are celebrating as well as the things that we are grieving, so that they need not be held alone. Joys and sorrows may be submitted online from our website. After each joy or sorrow that I read, please respond by saying with me, "We hold you in our hearts." A sorrow submitted by several members of the congregation. We mourn the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose legacy of fighting for equality lives on in our hearts and minds and spirits. Next week's service will focus on Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life and legacy, but for now, for all affected by her death, we hold you in our hearts. A joy from Joe Barker. Joe says, "Thanks to our ministry team, and member leadership for offering us support, worship, education, information, and conversation during this challenging time." To Joe, to our staff and lay leaders, we hold you in our hearts. A sorrow submitted on behalf of Jess Lott. Jess underwent surgery this week for what turned out to be ovarian cancer. She's currently recovering from surgery and awaiting a treatment plan that will be put together next week. For Jess, her daughter Lexi, and their friends and family, we hold you in our hearts. Another member of our congregation, Amy Gloy, had major surgery for throat cancer a couple of weeks ago and continues a challenging period of recovery. Amy reports that she is now eating soft foods and will be on a regular diet starting next week. She sends her thanks to everyone who has provided meals and says they're all set for food for now. To the Gloy family, we hold you in our hearts. Let us bear in mind all these joys and sorrows, as well as those that are held too closely to be shared at this time. I invite you to join me in the spirit of meditation as I read this poem by Nancy Schaffer, titled, "Because We Spill Not Only Milk." Because we spill not only milk, knocking it over with an elbow when we reach to wipe a small face, but also spill seed on soil we thought was fertile but isn't, and also spill whole lives and only later see in fading light how much is gone and we hadn't intended it. Because we tear not only cloth, thinking to find a true edge and instead making only a hole, but also tear friendships when we grow and whole mountainsides because we are so many and we want to live right where black oaks lived, once very quietly and still. Because we forget not only what we are doing in the kitchen and have to go back to the room we were in before, remember why it was we left, but also forget entire lexicons of joy and how we lost ourselves for hours, yet all that time were clearly found and held. And also forget the hungry not at our table, because we weep not only at jade plants caught in freeze and precious papers left in rain, but also at legs that no longer walk, or never did, although from the outside they look like most others. And also weep at words said once as though they might be rearranged, but which, once loose, refuse to return, and we are helpless. Because we are imperfect and love so deeply, we will never have enough days. We need the gift of starting over, beginning again, just this constant good, this saving hope. May we return to the gift of starting over today and tomorrow and ever after, again and again and again, forever turning toward the good and something like hope. Amen. In today's sermon, Kristen, a participant in my sermon writing class last year, talks about the book of Job, among other things. The song Mary and I are about to sing, written by Rabbi Shefa Gold, is called Awakening Compassion, or Mi Yachin. It's a Hebrew chant taken from the book of Job, Job chapter 38, verse 41, and is translated as, "Who prepares nourishment for the raven when its young ones call out to God and wander about for lack of food?" As Shefa Gold describes it, this chant calls forth from each of us the divine quality of compassion for all creatures who are calling out in hunger, yearning, or despair. We also open to the parts of ourselves that are calling out for tender consideration and care.
Mi achin la'aretz edom, ki al adam yashavehu. Mi achin la'aretz edom, ki al adam yashavehu. Mi achin la'aretz edom, ki al adam yashavehu.
One of the things I love about Sunnyhill is the diversity of religious backgrounds we all represent. Now, there are those of you who were born and raised Unitarian, and yes, we love you too. But so many of us left one religious home and ended up here. The journey is always personal and sometimes painful. I've heard more than one person paper over this trip by joking that they are, quote, a recovering Catholic. But here we are today. It's an affirmative act, coming to Sunnyhill, even online, well, especially online. Of all the infinite websites we could be at this Sunday morning, we find ourselves here together. For me, ending up at Sunnyhill started with losing one faith and the slow process of finding one's way back to another, wholly different kind. The faith I lost, the religion I was raised in, was Christian Science. I just want to preface this sermon by warning you that I am not going to give you every detail of this complicated and antiquated religion. If you are interested, please reach out to me, and I promise I will bore you with all the details you could ask for. But I don't want this to be a sermon about Christian Science, because that won't speak to many of you. Instead, this is about finding a faith as an adult that is firmer and more loving than the strict confines of one's childhood faith. I grew up with a type of spirituality that was completely removed from humanity. Humans were flawed, sinful, weak. They got sick. They were fearful. They were just a mess. We wanted to be like the angels. We had to listen for God's voice, and God wasn't going to be found among all the flawed humans, but rather in a cave or on a mountaintop or in the garden that Jesus prayed in. You had to go away from everything material and physical, and then maybe, just maybe, you could have a spiritual experience. This set me up for many years of self-loathing, because if you start out looking for flaws in humanity, you will have no end of source material. Humans are appalling to each other. We are horrendous to animals and other living things as well. Europeans decimate every environment they encounter, then name the streets after the trees and birds they just plowed over. So in short, we suck. As a species, we're the pits. I can see why religious figures reached for a perfect heaven in the skies, with angels and clouds and not an ingrown toenail amongst the bunch of them. But there's a problem with that kind of religion. It just doesn't suit me any longer. I found cold comfort in its spirituality. I saw people sick and suffering, and this spirituality, devoid of humanity, did not help them. The magic that the church had held for me as a child didn't hold up to the realities of adulthood. But I can't deny that there was magic in the church of my youth. Getting up on Sundays earlier than you wanted to, putting on clothes you wore nowhere else, and sitting on hard wooden seats while the piano played. Hymns were sung, and the sunlight slanted in at just the right angle, so as to be in everybody's eyes at once. It was a place I belonged, and I wanted to be perfect, like the people in the Bible we read about. As a child, I tried to resurrect squirrels who had been run over. Like Jesus praying over Lazarus, I would stand by the side of the road and try to truly know that the essence of the squirrel, his life, was not encased in a mortal body that could be hit by a car. Instead, I tried to know that the squirrel was an idea of God, and as an idea, it was never vulnerable to the whims of suburban drivers. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. I finally decided that looking at the squirrel's dead body was corrupting my ability to know the truth about the squirrel's life. And so I would face away from the creature and try to listen to hear if it scampered off. But even listening was tempting fate. So eventually I ran away from the squirrels and prayed at home. I did all this because I was raised as a Christian Scientist, and we were taught to avoid medical interventions and instead apply what was called the scientific example Jesus had left behind when he healed the sick, blind, and dead. I was born into this religion and knew nothing else, so it all made perfect sense that the world was a sick illusion to be avoided at all costs as we clung to the truth as taught to us in church. Unfortunately, I was no better at healing myself than I was at healing woodland creatures. Sometimes I would feel better after being sick and my mother would call it a healing. The next week in church, I would call it a healing. But in my heart, I knew it wasn't. This can only go on for so long. Finally, all the suspicions, all the unhealed illnesses, all the teaching that didn't quite add up caused me to leave the church. I was in college, and I was feeling like I had lost a limb without this religion being part of my thoughts and beliefs. I had, as a child, so wanted to be Christ-like and not just human, not flawed and weak and susceptible to ear infections and the general muddlement that seems to be the human condition. Nothing else offered that sense of perfection and closeness to God that my church seemed to offer. I took to studying the Bible, specifically the book of Job. If there was someone in the Bible who was flawed and human and who could teach me a way out of it, it was Job. For those not familiar with the story, Job is an upright man who follows God and leads a blessed life. Then the devil, or in some readings, the prosecutor, comes to God and says, Job isn't so hot. He only loves you, God, because you give him a good life. If you took his blessings away, he would curse you. So God, and here's the suspect part, he says, okay, take it all away from Job. He does. Job loses his asses and his health, his family. He is sitting on a garbage heap, taking pot shards to boils on his skin, while his friends lecture him about how he could be a better follower of God. This is where the phrase, the patience of Job, comes from. But the truth is, Job isn't that patient. He cursed God. He says, why me? Just like any other man. Since I was in college and studying Job, I read about scapegoating and political readings of the text. I read about the Holocaust and liberation theology, and I read about every interpretation of Job that was out there. The psychologist, philosopher Jung even wrote a book called The Answer to Job, as everyone seemed to. But none of them were satisfying. None of them answered why bad things happen to good people. In the Bible, God finally comes to Job in a whirlwind and impresses upon him how immense God's creation is. This somehow satisfies Job. He says, okay. And in some later years, folks writing down Bible stories decide to make things a little more satisfying. And they give Job back his asses and his daughters and restore all that had been lost. For 2 semesters that year in school, I wrote and wrote as I tried to puzzle out the book in the Bible and my life along with it. Finally, I was presenting my paper to my professor, and he asked if I was pleased with what I had done. I was exasperated. No, I was not pleased. No one solved the problem of evil. No one made the book of Job make sense. Nothing was shiny and holy. My professor paused and had me go back to the text where Job was talking with his friends. I read Job's words. Oh, that I had someone to give me a hearing. He wanted to be heard. My professor stopped me. I think Job just wanted some company as he suffered. He wanted to be with his friends. He didn't want advice. He wanted someone to sit beside him and just wait while his problems unfolded without demanding anything from him. If someone had an answer for his troubles, then he would seek justice. But in the meantime, he just wants a hearing. That's what the book is teaching us. Hear each other out. Patience and empathy for others will get you through the trials of life. I was stunned. The message spoke to me. For once, the Bible came alive, not as a club to hit myself over the head with, but as a light to guide my path. Keep each other company. Don't judge. Don't explain what you can't possibly understand. Just sit down in the trash heap with your friends and make the best of it. I realized that I had so desperately wanted someone with me in my own trash heap. I had tried to keep all my troubles and questions and suffering to myself. But what that meant was that I was alone. Instead, I reached out to those I had shied away from. They joined me in my suffering and made everything so much more bearable. They, in turn, reached out to me. Sometimes, even now, I get back into bad habits and hide away from those I love and who love me. But eventually, someone will show up at my trash heap. I hand them a pot shard, and we sit together to watch the sunset. I began to look for others who seemed to need some company in their lives, and I found fulfillment in just keeping company with folks. Sometimes the most we can do for someone is absolutely nothing. There is no answer for why bad things happen to good people. Maybe God is up there settling bets with the devil to this day, but we can be there for those in our lives who are suffering. And when it's our turn to suffer, we must be brave and invite those same loved ones in. It is transformative and as close to a religious experience as I get these days. It was famously said that hell is, quote, other people. I would posit that, if done right, heaven can be too. Those people who show up when we are at our lowest, those people who show up every day like it's no big deal, but it is to me. Those people are where I find my grace, my faith. This love, this very human connection is my religion.
If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me for to ease my pain? If you needed me, I would come to you. I would swim the sea for to ease your pain. Well, the night's forlorn, and the morning's born, and the morning's born with the lights of love. And you'll miss sunrise if you close your eyes, and that would break my heart in two. If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me for to ease my pain? If you needed me, I would come to you. I would swim the sea for to ease your pain.
Baby's with me now, since I showed her how to lay her lily hand in mine. Who could ill agree? She's a sight to see, and a treasure for the poor to find.
If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me for to ease my pain? If you needed me, I would come to you. I would swim the sea for to ease your pain.
We'll now give and receive our morning offering, which this week will benefit an Eagle Scout project of one of our youth, Ian Dawson. In just a moment, Ian will tell us more about this exciting project and how it will benefit Sunnyhill. If you'd like to make a donation via our online giving system, you can do so one of two ways. You can go to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says Online Giving. Then follow the instructions. Once you get to the drop-down menu, just choose either 2020 Pledge if you're paying on your pledge, or click on Designated Collections if you're giving to the Eagle Scout project. Or you can give by text at the number 412-324-3130. Just dial that number using your smartphone and follow the instructions. You can also pay by check through the mail if you prefer, and you can find our mailing address on our website at sunnyhill.org. Thank you very much for your generosity today.
Hello Sunnyhill members, my name is Ian Dawson and I'm a Boy Scout of the nearby Troop 22. Over the past year, I have been working with the Sunnyhill board to approve and organize my Eagle Scout service project, a requirement for the highest rank of scouting which I am looking to achieve. It is also a great way of serving the community. This project will be the construction of a gathering space next to the sanctuary by the park that was constructed by another Eagle Scout for his project. This area will provide a place for parents to watch their children play outside, as well as a place for all manner of outdoor events, from picnics to outdoor services. However, this is by no means a single-person job, and I have gotten approval from the board to include volunteers from Sunnyhill and my Boy Scout troop in this effort. If you would like to lend your time and energy to help the Sunnyhill community complete this project, then you can help in 3 ways. By lending your time and energy to help with the construction of the project on October 10th, by lending tools to help with the construction, or by making a contribution during the designated offering to help fund the purchase of materials and tool rental. If you do wish to volunteer, work will be happening Saturday, October 10th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. You should bring a mask and practice social distancing, and will be asked by the board to sign a waiver to participate. I would like to thank the Sunnyhill board and Sunnyhill community for their support of this project, and I hope to see many of you here at Sunnyhill on October 10th. Thank you.
What wondrous love is this, O my soul, O my soul? What wondrous love is this, O my soul? What wondrous love is this that brings my heart such bliss, and takes away the pain of my soul, and takes away the pain of my soul. When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down beneath my sorrow's ground, friends to me gathered round. O my soul, friends to me gathered round. O my soul, to love and to all friends I will sing, I will sing. To love and to all friends I will sing. To love and to all friends who pain and sorrow mend, with thanks unto the end, I will sing, I will sing. With thanks unto the end, I will sing.
Please welcome and please join us in saying the words for extinguishing our chalice.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing words were written by Deborah Hafner. We are on a journey. We didn't plan it. We didn't have time for the bread to rise. We may find ourselves in the wilderness, hungry, thirsty, doubting that we should have ever come. But notice that there are others around us. We are not alone. It is our journey together. A journey to our better selves, a journey to a better world, a journey to a more promised land. Go in peace.